Hello and welcome to the 26th gathering of the Adventure Party on this, the 27th of September. I'm your party leader, Brad Ludwig. We ask that you peace tie your swords, holster your blasters, and make sure you don't confuse your 12-siders with your 20-siders while you are gathered at the meeting table. Boy, nothing sucks more than rolling the wrong die, I'm telling you.
Can't roll over a 12, man.
I'm never getting a crit. What's going on? That sucks. This week we don't have guests, but we do have the effervescent Glenn Bittner. He is a movie reviewer on the YouTubes with his show, The B-Movie Bunker, and he is the creator of the RPG Mistrunner. How are you, sir?
Bubbly.
That threw me for a loop, and I'm not exactly sure why. Speaking of being thrown for a loop, because we don't have a guest, we reach into the grab bag of topics that we have, and the topic that we pulled out of the hat this week is discussing movies that feel like they're RPG sessions. They feel like it. Well, I think I picked a movie that was probably universally panned, but screw everybody else. But it did feel like a Cyberpunk 2020 game, and we'll get to that when we get there. But there are some movies that either have a great deal of action that fit a specific genre, and you watch it and you go, oh, this would fit under X game system, and I could see that working. And I think I know how I would, draw up the villain, how I would make the NPCs, and how this would all kind of flow. And it takes on a different, sense in your head as to how that would be constructed, and maybe you get gaming ideas from that. But that said, we're going to talk about the films that that Glenn and I watched and went, oh, I wonder if some folks were playing a session of, Champions, or somebody was playing a session of D&D or something, and kind of drafted this idea based on a session, perhaps. So, as always, we are going to start with Glenn's review of a game that has caught his eye, and he feels that everybody else in the who's a member of the Adventure Party should be aware of. So, what do you have this week, Glenn?
Ladies and gentlemen, in the right corner, we have weighing in at 324 pounds, Bam Bam El Fuego, and his opponent, weighing in at 179 pounds, Anita Dynamita. Ladies and gentlemen, I am bringing you Luchador, the Mexican wrestling dice game. This is from Mark Rivera, and it's published by Backspindle Games. It came out in 2013. There's actually the second edition, which is the only one you should get because they improved play quite a bit. It's 2 to 4 players, and it is about 15 to 30 minutes, depending if you're doing 2-player or if you're doing a 4-player tag team match. The game, first of all, the design of it is great. It comes with a little board you can roll dice on. It's the little dice that have, your hits and your blocks and your counters and all that. But rolling on the board is for chumps when they include a 3-dimensional wrestling ring with rope to tie around the edge, and you actually roll the dice in the ring. Yeah.
Okay. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube right now, this is beautiful. This is absolutely freaking beautiful.
Yep. And that's what comes with it. That's not like a prop.
Oh, this is great. So if you're watching YouTube right now, I've got images of what this ring that you assemble for this game looks like, and it is a thing of beauty. And I'm sold. I want this game now.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, this is not, intense strategy, heavy thinking type game. This is just roll some dice, and I mean, there's a lot of luck involved. You do have some choices here and there, but you've got a great selection of wrestlers, and there's regular play and there's advanced play. Advanced play is the one I would recommend playing because that's where you get a little bit more variety, where the wrestlers actually adopt special powers and weaknesses and strengths. That sets them apart from in the basic version where it's just simply go, oh, there's just a little flavor text for when you roll a specific die. But generally what you're going to do is each turn, players are going to roll your dice. You're going to have your own color dice, and you're both going to roll them in the wrestling ring. Any dice that go out of the ring are out of play for the turn. And you have your dice will, some will be misses, some will be blocks, which will counter, a block will stop a hit. A hit lets you roll hit dice, which are going to do damage. And then counters, a counter counters a hit and then lets you, as the person who rolled the counter, roll a hit die. And then there's a pin die. A pin die, as players get weaker, as you're taking damage from your hit point total, you can become pinnable. Now, if someone rolls a pin die, they have an option. They can try to pin you, which is one of the ways you can win, or they can re-roll those pin dice once to try to get a different result. And part of the key of wanting to re-roll is if you re-roll, you can try to roll it so you knock your opponent's dice out of the wrestling ring, meaning they will then be out for the round.
Oh.
Although you have to be careful because you might end up rolling your own dice out of the ring.
Sure.
So, but still, once everyone's dice are done rolling, you see what hits, what blocks everyone has, and then you'll roll your hit dice based on it. You can also cash in 3 of your hit dice to roll your special luchador die, which will give you different special things, which could be really, really damaging or could also hurt you because you can actually stun yourself from trying to do some special move. You typically start with 21 hit points in the game, 18 if you're doing a tag team match. Most of the attacks can do 1, 2, 3 damage like that. When the luchador damage, you can get all the way up to like 7 damage. When you're trying to pin someone, what you do is you roll the pin dice, and what your opponent's going to have to do is they're going to have to roll dice to try to not be pinned. They're going to get 3 tries to, if I remember right, they have to roll blocks to successfully get out of a pin. If they don't, they're pinned, and you win the match. The other way to win is by simply reducing your opponent to 0 hit points, thus knocking them out. And I love, when I was younger, I remember some TV station we had on cable would show luchador matches, and I loved it. I mean, I was a wrestling fan already when I was a younger kid, but the luchador stuff was just so much better. And then as I got older, I found some of the movies with like the luchadors fighting Dracula and zombies and all that stuff, and it's a whole culture that a lot of people just aren't that familiar with or don't even know exists. And I just find it fascinating because it's just this whole other world. And the characters they give you, as I said, someone to mention, there was Anita Dinomita, there's Lady Kabuki, there's Ay Dolores, Bam Bam El Fuego, and you get La Tormenta Muerta, El Perrito, who's little dog, Hilo, La Cobra Vuela, and El Charro Negro. So just all these great little characters they all have their special powers and weaknesses if using the advanced rules. Bam Bam El Fuego has athletic ability because he trained as a gymnast in his youth, and he is a master of acrobatics. He excels in the air. A Bam Bam drop kick scores 2 extra points of damage. So he does 3 instead of the usual 1. But because of his flamboyant aerobatics, when Bam Bam's signature move fails, it fails big time. Any fail results rolled by Bam on the lucha die counts as an injury and results in an instant stun. So he's got a weakness that goes with it. And then each character also has a killer combo. If you roll specific dice, you get to then do a combination roll. So like you roll a hit, block, you then, which is how you get your lucha die. For example, Bam Bam gets to roll a lucha die plus 2 pin die. Someone else might roll the lucha plus some hit dice, and so that way you can do like tons of damage all at one time, or you can even damage your opponent and try to pin him at the same time. It's just it's it's really cool. I haven't played with all the characters yet. I actually just picked this up like 5 days ago.
Okay.
I saw it at Gen Con. I had heard of it a while back, and then I saw it at Gen Con. I'm like, oh yeah, I should pick it up when I get back. And then I forgot about it for about a month, and then saw it. Somebody mentioned it. I'm like, oh, I wonder if they have it in distribution. I'm like, sure enough, and I brought it in, and it's like $35. Which for a game that gives you, I mean, you get like, I don't know, 20 some dice. You get the cards for the characters are really good quality, and you get a freaking 3D wrestling ring.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a deal.
Yeah, I think it's a great value for the money. It's a fun little filler game, and I love the art production of it. I mean, the wrestling ring. I mean, it does make it a bit harder to store in the box, but you know what? Take the good with the little bit of bad.
Yeah, and from the images that we were kind of flipping through while you were talking, yeah, that's it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Oh, that is great. Oh, and I wanted to let you know that for my birthday, my ex-wife and son got me a birthday present, which was a copy of The Castles of Mad King Ludwig.
Have you played it?
Not yet. It is still sealed up, and we have not pulled it out to play with anybody yet. So, as soon as I do get to play it, I will let you know.
Yes, because if anyone should play it, it should be Mad Brad Ludwig.
Sadly, the last name of Ludwig is the German equivalent of Smith, so yeah, no relation whatsoever. All right, no, that's great,
None
yeah. Well, besides, I adopted into the name of Ludwig, so definitely no blood relation there. I really want to play this game. I really do. This is awesome. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. It's called Luchador, Mexican Wrestling Dice Game by Backspindle Games. 2 to 4 players, and like you said, 30 minutes is the maximum amount of time to play a game.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Okay. Well, going to move on to the news, and this caught my eye. We just posted the Kenneth Haidt audio version of his interview on the Adventure Party, and he spoke of Chaosium and how they have the RPG rights to Cthulhu. And when he did the Cthulhu, what was it? Trail of Cthulhu? I think that's what it was. The pulp Cthulhu Mythos game. They had to arrange rights with Chaosium, and Chaosium here ends 40 years in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. As a part of its ongoing restructuring, the iconic games company Chaosium has made the difficult decision to close its office and warehouse in Hayward, California, ending the 40-year physical presence of the company in the San Francisco Bay Area. Chaosium has a global fan base, and the principal officers of the company are located across the globe, said Chaosium president Nick. I'm going to go with Mantis. Rick Mantis. Our Axis Mundi is now online and at conventions. While archives, records, and the company Cockatrice, which actually, if you click the link here from the nworld.org news article that we'll have in the show notes, they do have a box for the company Cockatrice, have been moved north to Chaosium's base of operations in the Pacific Northwest. The company is switching to a fulfillment model out of Brainerd, Minnesota for shipping, the same center used by Moon Design Publications. We are also listening to our international customers' concerns and are well on the way to establishing a similar fulfillment model in Europe, and are looking at better options for other international destinations, says Mainz. And again, we'll have the link to the to this particular article in the show notes, and you can see the sad pictures of them packing up shop and moving on out. Now, from what I understand from reading other comments and a little bit of what's going on with Chaosium, yes, they have gone through a bit of a restructuring, and it sounds like there's a lot of online concern that the direction that the company was headed was not a good one, and it lessened their market share, I guess, and ability to be seen in the public eye. It didn't seem like there was a lot going on with the Chaosium stuff, especially the Cthulhu stuff. So hopefully this is a good move for them, and things will definitely improve for them. When's the last time you played Call of Cthulhu?
19...
Yeah.
Late 1990s, maybe early 2000s.
Yeah, I think it was early 2000s for me as well. And actually, Todd Roll ran that game, and it was spectacular. But it was.
I've heard you mention him before.
We have mentioned Todd Roll before, and he played an excellent, creepy game. Set it up for us, and yeah, I was the last quote-unquote survivor, as it were. And my character had to give his life up to save the world. So, as is many the theme in a Lovecraft story, I gotta say, since we're on the subject of Chaosium and Lovecraft, I've been listening to another podcast called the HP. It's hppodcraft.com, the H.P. Lovecraft literary podcast, and it's really wonderful. They actually, if you're a Lovecraft fan and you enjoy Chaosium and some of the modules that they had to offer for the Call of Cthulhu system, these guys really break it down and go through some of the historical, actual bits of truth that are wedged within the story of historical events that Lovecraft wove into stories, and give a bit of the history of the stories, and in some cases things that H.P. Lovecraft ghost wrote or co-wrote with people. So I kind of recommend that, since we're on the theme of Cthulhu at this point, or at least I've pulled it in that direction. So do you remember when you last played it? Well, let's take it in this direction. I can't think of an active ad campaign. We'll take it there for Call of Cthulhu or Chaosium stuff. Have you seen anything lately?
I know one of my coworkers is bringing it up. He wants to run something, and there's actually what is it called? It's called Achtung Cthulhu, which I think uses the Cthulhu rules. Oh no, sorry, that one uses Savage World.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the only thing so Call of Cthulhu. I mean, I've heard. 7th edition I think is the last one that was done. And I've probably last heard about it a few years ago. I mean, people bring it up every now and again,
yeah,
wanting to play it or wanting to revisit it, but no one ever does. And the only people I know who thought of revisiting it, who did, ended up going with Achtung Cthulhu instead.
Okay.
Because what would make Cthulhu better? Adding Nazis. Because it wasn't already hard enough.
Well, a lot of, the core of H.P. Lovecraft's mythos writing happened in between, well, about 10 years after the close of World War I, maybe even 15 years, and he passed away in 1937. So
Yeah, something like that.
things were getting ugly in Europe, but they hadn't quite escalated to the levels that happened later on in the war. But yeah, I think that you have a couple of things going for it. The Thule Society, that there was a great deal of occult and mysticism and interest by Hitler in that, and then you have the fact that the Cthulhu mythos. I mean, knowledge is power, and it's usually evil power. So that just kind of even cements itself probably a little bit closer to Nazis in people's heads. So it's a logical step to take, I think. But I would be interested in playing Achtung Cthulhu, and just to see what that's like. And I know that former guest Kenneth Haidt did some work on that too. So.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually appears in the hppodcraft.com stuff because he's regarded as a bit of a H.P. Lovecraft scholar. So
yeah, a little bit.
All right. Well, that's enough of Lovecraft talk for the evening. We're going to move on to Galactic Gaming News from Ryan Murphy, and he is a regular contributor to Galactic Netcasts, and he covers more of the digital beat of gaming, and he has another update for us. So please, take it away, Ryan. All right. Thanks for the report, Ryan. Appreciate that. We are going to move on to the Kickstarter Spotlight, and we are going to take a look at the last time that we gathered, and we took a week off because my computer died, and I'm actually limping along here with a Chromebook for this particular meeting of the Adventure Party. But the last time that we spoke of Private Die, a noir Dwight... a noir
game.
Yes. A noir dice game, which was a relaunch. And you brought that to our attention. So why don't you give us just a quick recap as to what Private Die, a noir dice game, is all about?
All right. So Private Die, it's 2 to 6 players. It's a short game where you have different detectives, you have witness cards, and you have different cases. And you're rolling dice trying to collect clues. And the first person to collect 15 or more clues solves the case and wins the crime. They were looking for $3,000 for their goal. They still have 10 days to go, so I think they're going to get to their funding goal because they're already at $8,975, which is, obviously, if you do math, $5,975 over their goal. Yay! So they have already gotten there. You can get a copy of the game for $19. Should be shipping out May of next year. That'd be 2016, because I expect eventually there'll be so many episodes of the Adventure Party where you'll need to know what year it was filmed or recorded. And they unlocked a bunch of stretch goals. They actually have they unlock components for up to an 8th player.
Oh, that's wonderful!
They upgraded the clue tokens. They added additional case card, more witness cards. You get a dice bag with the game.
And editable
and a PDF where you can
PDFs.
make your own cards.
Yeah, That's awesome.
Yeah. Why have I not backed this yet?
I wish I wasn't...
Now I have.
Yeah, I wish I wasn't broke right now. Otherwise, I would be... I feel bad that I didn't drop my money for this last time I had cash. Well, thank God there's 10 days left to go because I get paid again on Friday. So I will have to set myself a reminder, which, boom, there we go. Excellent. All right. So, yeah, this thing is definitely funded, and because this is a a relaunch. Now, this was out once before, or they are just redoing a Kickstarter that may not have been successful last time. I don't see any information on that. Well, regardless, this looks like a very fun game. If the noir genre of film is something that you enjoy, this would definitely be something for you. This looks like a lot of fun and a great deal of replayability, and you get a ton of dice. I mean, every person that plays gets their own 5d6 to roll for their particular characters, and all the different the 45 clue tokens, which can be reused for perhaps a game that you're building. And I know we're going to be talking to somebody fairly soon who is working on a project to do something like Cheap Ass again. So
yes,
I'm looking forward to speaking to this person again. So, all right. Well, what we're going to do now is we are going to talk about our new Kickstarter that we think that you should be aware of. And this really intrigued me. The game is called Clear for Takeoff. And it is a board game that is has been created by excuse me, a Russian gentleman who is a pilot and is licensed to fly a number of planes, including the new Airbus. He's licensed for the Boeing 777, and he grew up in a family that enjoyed games, and this is not his first rodeo at game making. So the video for this game, you'll be able to see the link in the show notes here. He talks a little bit about his history and a little bit about the game, a little bit about gameplay, and the time period of this. Well, let me just read you the about this project for this particular game because it's so fascinating. Clear for Takeoff board game was expertly created by an airline pilot teamed with game designers. The game is centered around life at John F. Kennedy Airport in the 60s. You manage one of 6 airlines, and your goal is to ensure that all of your aircrafts are first to take off successfully. To do this, you must collect cards to place and advance your aircraft towards the takeoff position. Weather permitting, your aircrafts can take off. The weather is always good at the beginning of the game, but this can change as the game progresses at the request of players, as well as other outside factors. Additionally, you are able to delay other players' aircrafts, and they can delay yours. The player who takes off first wins. Now, this is not necessarily all ages, but 9 and up. It plays 2 to 6 people. Gameplay is about 30 to 90 minutes. There are tournament options available. That's kind of interesting. Several different strategies can be used to allow for replayability. Easy to understand with simple rules. Rule translation allows for the game to be used in foreign markets. So there you go. The game comes with a rulebook, board, 144 cards, 34 tokens, and there are different pledge levels here. $45 gets you in on the game. That is the Captain ATR 42 pledge. Clear for takeoff box, tokens included, plus all applicable stretch goals. Shipping is charged after campaign ends, so shipping is extra, but it will ship anywhere in the world. And the estimated delivery at this time is December of this year, so that's really cool. If you do $70 or more, you get the Captain B727 pledge level, clear for takeoff box, plastic models included. and those plastic models would be of the airplanes themselves. At the $120 level, you get the Captain B747 pledge, clear for takeoff box, plastic models included. With the Concorde expansion, you get pilot wings and a set of postcards. That is really cool. And you can do the pledge at $210 or more, and this is really designed for retailers. You get 5 clear for takeoff boxes, tokens included, plus all applicable stretch goals. So there you go. Now they do have a number of stretch goals. 50,000 free shipping, 75,000 new mechanic, which gives the military activity card availability, 100,000 new mechanic runway switching card. So it sounds like you get your particular runway in the game, and that's how you take off. You each have your own particular runway, but it sounds like this mechanic might let you jump to somebody else's runway, which is very interesting. Technical assistance card at 125,000. 150,000, you get the new mechanic of emergency card. Not sure what that is. So, and they have different bonuses for sharing, which is very interesting. At the 1,000 share level, Pinup Stewardess Girl postcard. 2,000 Pinup Passenger Girl postcard. I'm feeling that there's a pattern here. 3,000 Pinup Mechanic Girl, 4,000 Pinup Agent Girl, 5,000 Pinup Captain Girl. Huh, I'm still not sure what the theme is here. Anyways, there's a number of different videos at the bottom of this that really kind of goes over gameplay so you can better understand this game, but it's not, and we've talked about this before. If done properly, you can make a good game out of anything. I mean, hell, we had a game about elephant racing. We've had a game about making poop cubes for wombats, which seemed really cool. So, you know, making a game about flying an aircraft in the 1960s, I mean, come on, that just sounds really, really fun. And $45. As we've talked about before, you know, a good game, you're going to be spending, you know, that level, 45 to 55 bucks for a board game, for a good quality board game, is not uncommon. So there you go, $45 if you pledge to this will get you on board for Clear for Takeoff. So did you get a chance to take a look at this yet? And what are your thoughts?
A little bit today. It looks nifty. There are a few other games that deal with a little bit like this, because there's one from AEG called Planes. This looks a little more in depth than Planes, from what I can tell. Stretch goals. Actually, no, it's the share goals. I'm a little. I can see those share goals actually possibly turning off some people.
Yeah, that's a double-edged sword.
And I mean, yes, tabletop gaming is still primarily guys, and I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't find women attractive, because I do. But pinups, I don't know. It's a hard thing to do, to make it where someone's not going to go, oh, you're just trying to market this to 13-year-old boys. Although, looking at the postcard, I mean, they're not like graphically obscene or anything, but
no, it's it looks, and these are drawn.
These are drawn,
and the outfits are very much in the style of 60s type attire. So you get a sneak peek at the stewardess girl, and she's wearing the gloves, wearing the hat, and wearing the outfit that is typical of the time. I doubt that you're not going to see anybody in a bikini in this or anything like that.
I mean, at least from that one, I mean, it at least fits the time period.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, yeah, like flight attendants were actually stewardesses back then.
Yeah.
There's no way a company could get away with the hiring standards they had back then.
No, not even a little bit.
Oh, you're size 2, you're much too fat to be a stewardess.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you know, everything over the size 2 is in your chest, then that's fine. That's fine.
Yep.
Just make sure you smoke and drink lots of alcohol while flying.
As was the fashion of the time. Yes. All right. Yes. So their overall goal, they're looking to reach $25,000, and with 31 days to go at this moment in time, they're at 6,937. So, it's potentially doable. I don't know if they started off at 59 days or anything like that, 60 days, but yeah, they need to reach goal, and the funding drive ends excuse me, Thursday, October 29th. So at 2 p.m. Central Daylight. So there you go. Well, we wish them luck, and boy, if you're interested in a period board game that comes from the 60s, and you're interested in aeronautics, this definitely may be for you. So, all right, we're going to move on with our discussion about movies that feel like they could have come out of gaming sessions. What was our criteria for this? No genre was off limits. Fantasy, cyberpunk, film noir, superhero genre, supernatural, horror, anything. And I think we've come up with 8. Yeah, I'm looking at this. We've got about 8.
9.
Oh, 9.
I'm just adding one.
I need to. Oh, see, there you go. Yep.
Except that's not what it is. I don't know what a flagon is.
I don't, but I fixed it. Thank you, Google. All right. Gosh, see, now I want to. Oh, actually, I do have one.
If that's going where I think it's going. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. I'm sure you enjoyed that little pause while we were doing things that you couldn't see. But that said, you're going to partake in this part of the discussion. We have now 10 items that we will be discussing of films that we feel could have come from a RPG session, or if they did not, they could be primers for an idea for you to use in your particular setting. And like I said, they aren't genre specific. They are not all fantasy. Would you like to start, Glenn, or should I?
Go ahead, Brad.
Okay. My first pick, actually, this movie, I've seen only parts of it, but what I've seen and what I know of, it's actually based on a classic tale of 2 lovers who were cursed to never be able to be with each other. By day, one is a hawk, and by night, oh God, what is the other?
He's a wolf.
He's a wolf, that's right. So the 2 of them can never really be together. And that movie is a Matthew Broderick vehicle with Michelle Pfeiffer and Rutger Hauer. Very interesting combination there. And that movie is called Lady Hawk. So very much a fantasy setting that has an epic tale of questing to kind of bring two people back together. And this really felt like something that could come out of, I don't know. I don't think necessarily a D&D session. Maybe another game system.
Ars Magica or something along those lines, possibly.
Yeah.
A little bit more. I don't know. So something that would obviously focus much more on storytelling than on go hit things with a sword.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on Ladyhawke, Glenn? You being a movie reviewer, this is right up your alley.
I've never seen Ladyhawke.
Really? Okay.
No, of course not. I've seen this movie many, many times. I'm lying.
Stop it. See, I don't have my dual monitor set up like I normally do with my other computer, so I couldn't see your face and tell if you were lying.
No, I'm a big fan of Ladyhawke. And I mean, partly is, I'm a Rutger Hauer fan. And just I like the overall story. It's more fairy tale than most people I think were expecting. People weren't expecting the type of story they got out of this, which is it's a romance, and it's that kind of yearning for love or lost love, that is going on. And it's almost kind of like a Sleeping Beauty or a Cinderella type story. You've got the evil curse, and of course they have to fight to break it. Except this time there's this thief who's along for the ride who actually does a lot of the stuff to help break the spell, as it were. This is it actually did serve as fodder for part of a game I ran back in grade school. Type of thing where they had it was two star-crossed lovers who could never meet, but then the players had to basically find a way to undo the curse. Except obviously it was more than just Matthew Broderick. There were 3 Matthew Brodericks in my game.
Now, this Ladyhawke is actually based on a 12th century French story. Boy, I'm just doing a little checking here. Bisclerivet is a happily married baron and knight of Brittany who disappears for 3 days each week. When pressed by his wife, he admits that he goes hunting in wolf form. She becomes upset about this and betrays him, taking another knight as her lover and inducing him to steal Bisclerivet's clothes so he can't resume human form. Eventually, the wolf becomes a companion of the king, and while at court, has the opportunity to attack both his rival and his former wife. The wife is forced to admit her actions and return Bisclerivet's clothing, whereupon he is restored to human form. Interesting.
And probably because of the 12th century, they didn't divorce because that'd be wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
So, live with the woman who,
yeah. Well, she
wanted to keep you a wolf, and
she
her live with the man who tried to eat her as a wolf.
Yeah. She would probably have been burned in the 12th century had she asked for a divorce. Gosh, what a young-looking Matthew Broderick.
Yes.
Wow. To be that young again. Yeah, it is definitely a wonderful classic story that from the 80s that I need to now see in its entirety. I've only caught it a few times, like when I've been in the middle of something. But I suppose nowadays there's really no excuse because of the internets. So I'm going to move on to my next choice, and I'm jumping genres here by going to Cyberpunk. And this is the movie that I said earlier on that was pretty universally panned, which is sad. And I know why it was panned. It's because the ending is kind of crap. And that movie is a...
Dumb and Dumber. Right?
It's actually Gibson inspired, and I think he had a hand in it. By Gibson, I mean William Gibson, the man who gave us the great gift called Neuromancer. That movie is called Johnny Mnemonic, Now, the interesting thing about Johnny Mnemonic is, I think at the point when this had come out, I had played Cyberpunk 2020 and Shadowrun, and because this takes place in the future, brief rundown: a gentleman who his job is he's got a data slot in his head, and his job is he shuttles data for people. His job is not to look at the data. He asks no questions except, how much are you paying me? And he slots a chip into his head, downloads the data, takes it to where it needs to go, and they download the data, and the transaction is done. Now, this movie was, oh gosh, I want to say 96? 95, actually.
95.
Yep. And, I saw this movie, and I remember seeing The Matrix, and I go, see, now, this is how you do that genre just a little bit better. Yeah, Johnny is a data courier, like I said. I think now that movie, now that computers are storing so much more, I think the amount of storage in his head is now laughable by today's standards.
Yes.
Johnny ends up getting stuck with having data put into his head, which is more than he can technically hold, and it actually starts to degrade his brain, and it is slowly killing him, and the data that he has in his head is actually incredibly dangerous for the status quo. Now, the great thing about this, speaking of Rutger Hauer, this movie gives us a return of Dolph Lundgren, who plays...
Priest.
He plays... Preacher. Yeah, he plays a street preacher who is... He has cyberpsychosis. In other words, he had a job previously, and he was a mercenary, I think, or a street samurai, and he had so much of himself replaced with robotic hardware that he went crazy. And he ends up becoming like a street preacher and like a major badass. And he is hired to take out Johnny. And the scene as to where the priest actually gets like knocked down and set on fire and there's like barely anything human left of him at all was just really creepy. And we also get Henry Rollins as a doctor.
And Ice-T.
And Ice-T, yes. And Jonesy, the cyber dolphin. Anyways, there were a lot of elements in it that when I watched it, I went, oh, there's a monofilament sword or something like that. You get a lot of the things that were taken out of either Cyberpunk or Shadowrun, and it was truly, as a game player watching that movie, thinking, oh, wow, I could see that being an actual game that somebody played or could play. What are your thoughts about Johnny Mnemonic?
There's parts of it I liked, and part of it was the fans that was given to people who were big cyberpunk fans and who would recognize things like, oh yeah, monofilament cable and different things like that, or cyber, knowing what cyberpsychosis is. I think Keanu was not the best choice to play the lead role in this. Although if it was the Keanu that was in John Wick, it would have been much better, but it was not. This is more Bill and Ted Keanu than it is one that you can really take seriously. And I think part of its failure, too, is it just, while Gibson was the writer of the screenplay, I have a feeling there was a lot of studio involvement or possibly director involvement as well to change things up. And I mean, I'm speculating on that. I don't know for sure. I mean, the fact that the guy who directed this, I mean, his biggest directing gig to date before that was one episode of Tales from the Crypt 3 years earlier. And then he did a couple music videos, one for REM, one for New Order. So,
yeah,
I don't know how much of the actual what we saw was Gibson's intent.
yeah. Well, just ask Frank Miller about RoboCop 3.
Yeah.
He's in the same boat there.
But I mean, yeah, like I said, I mean, they give, you know, some fan service to some of the stuff from Cyberpunk. I mean, you've got the street doc, who is Henry Rollins.
Yep.
And, you know, you've got all those different little things in there that are still catch with you if you've played these games, if you've read these books. And, you know, I mean, figure when this came out too, Cyberpunk was still a very, to most people, a lot of people, unknown genre. I mean, you didn't have as anywhere near the number of authors you have now.
Yeah.
You know, you had Gibson, and you had Sterling. I don't even know if Stevenson was doing back then. If Snow Crash was out back then or not.
I was going to throw out his name.
Oh yeah, it came out a couple of years before.
Okay.
So, but I mean, even still, a lot of people, you know, it was still really new. And I mean, you know, computers were not anywhere near where we are now, and the internet was not what it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, this was still, I think, 95. We were just past, you know, the BBS eras, where you were just starting to get into, you know, where you'd have the bare bones of what you see as the World Wide Web now. Where, you know, you have web pages and stuff like that. But so I mean, you know, a lot of this stuff, it was fresh territory for a lot of people. I think that's part of what made it tank, is that it was something that a lot of people didn't understand.
Yeah, I really feel, looking back, of course, hindsight is always 20/20. I think that Johnny Mnemonic would be better today than it would at the time that it came out.
Sure.
With definitely some tweaks. Because, you know, if you think about it, Fifth Element came out around this time too, and that, granted, it's not necessarily cyberpunk, but it dealt with some themes, some similar themes, I think, but it did it so much more elegantly. And yeah, Keanu Reeves' acting felt a little stiff. There were times when I think that he was trying to deliver funny lines, and I don't know if it was a particular edit or the particular take, but it just didn't. It fell flat. So, all right. My next choice is I'm going to go with the Mission Impossible series. So pick your Mission Impossible movie, and especially especially I would say this most recent film, Mission Impossible, this would be the 5th one, Rogue Nation. I got a chance to play, Top Secret, the TSR spy game. And I think we've talked about that before. But a really well done Top Secret game, I think, could really... I'm trying to think of other game systems that approach or are very suited to the spy genre. I mean, well, we talked to Kenneth Haidt and the Dracula Dossier, which is based on Knight's Black Agents, which is spy related, but with a supernatural bent. So I guess it doesn't. It has the spy theme at least, but it's not a straight spy system. Can you think of any other systems besides? And of course, I'm not sure you can.
Spycraft 20 Modern.
Okay, because I'm not sure you can find Top Secret. You might be able to find a copy of it out on the internet somewhere. But yeah, I'm hard pressed to. The thing that really, the thing I really remember from Top Secret is the whole section on gadgets. And yes, you could make the argument that any James Bond film would fall under this category, but to me, in watching Rogue Nation, they have like cell phones that you push a button on it and it flips out sort of like a key blank sort of a thing, and you can see on the screen as it's adjusting the particular rod that you stick into the lock as it's sort of x-raying the lock and hitting the tumblers right on the pins for the tumblers, and watching that whole mechanic go on, and that just really felt like something that would be a device that you would have found in the catalog for Top Secret. It sounds like you're doing a search. Are you finding anything else that might...
No, not really. I was trying to see if I could find a copy of Top Secret.
It was a fun game to play, but it was sad.
I played a ton of it.
Yeah, it didn't really catch and hold, unfortunately. Yeah, that's a shame. All right, next up, I'm going to go with a film that, again, it's sad that it really didn't. And again, it's another Keanu Reeves film. We're kind of jumping to the sort of supernatural hero genre, if that is technically a genre. It's definitely it's not really a hero film either. It's a hard one to quantify, but I'm going to go with Constantine. You had, for those of you who aren't familiar with the comic book, in the comics, John Constantine is a platinum blonde-haired British dabbler in magic who has wheeled and dealed and taken many a chance, and at one point in time his soul was sold to two different demons in hell, and he kind of set it up so that they couldn't take him because they would have had to fight over his soul, and it would have not worked out well for anybody. So in the movie, he is an American, played by Keanu Reeves. But I look at this, what I do to watch this film, and I do enjoy it, but I view it as like an Elseworld story. It's like, okay, yes, it's this John Constantine, but he actually came from America, and Chaz is a teenager as opposed to his chum who is his same age. So yeah, there are a lot of things that aren't like the comic book, but I close my eyes and pretend it's Elseworlds and move forward. But it kind of reminded me a bit of the setting for White Wolf's Hunter. That's what it was. Hunter the Apocalypse.
Okay.
Which now I've spoken before of the Hunters Hunted, which is let's not confuse this. Hunters Hunted is sort of a subgenre of, it was kind of a spin-off of the vampire game where everybody is hunting mostly vampires, but it kind of expanded to hunting the supernatural in general. The Hunter game, these are people who have been awakened to the fact that there are angels and there are demons, and we are in the final days of, it's the end times, essentially. And these two factions are fighting for the Earth, and to find out who wins ultimately. And that's really kind of the theme of the Constantine movie. We've got somebody who's trying to speed things along and finish up the end game, essentially, and the ending of that movie just what John does at the end to try to stop everything was just, it made me giggle. I can't remember the name of the actor who plays the devil, but he plays the devil.
Peter Stormare.
Oh God, his portrayal of the devil is so. I rate it right up there with Viggo Mortensen in Prophecy. It is so creepy and mildly disturbing, and just a pleasure to watch. Just a pleasure.
There were actually some really good. I'm not a huge fan of this movie, but I will admit that there was some great performances. I love Peter Stormare as Satan. I love Tilda Swinton as Gabriel.
Yep.
Juman, if I'm pronouncing it, Juman Hunsu as Papa Midnight.
Papa Midnight. Yep.
Though I have to give props. I love the guy who played Papa Midnight in the series.
Yes. Far closer to the actual comic book portrayal of Papa Midnight, that's for sure.
And I mean, part of my dislike is that I could not view it differently like you did. At the time this movie came out, I was neck deep in Hellblazer comics.
Yeah.
I had gone out and I got as many trades and packages as I could find, and it was the one thing that I had to read every month when it came out. I had to read Hellblazer. And Cannon he was so different from the Constantine I knew, and it was hard for me to separate the two.
Yeah.
And perhaps I could go back and rewatch it, because I've gotten better at being able to do that. Unless it's a Will Smith movie made off a book, because those are why even give it that title? Why give it just call it Will Smith Does Something, because that's all it ever is. It's never what it's based on. But this one, and I mean, a lot of the different changes, Chaz being a teenager. And I mean, I remember when this movie was first announced, and mind you, I was getting my information via, chat groups and discussion boards.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have any cool news and, BuzzFeed and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the biggest fear was they're going to make him American. Yeah. And we're like, no, they can't do that. Why would they do that? It's like, he's English. How hard is it in English? But Hollywood for a long time has had this fear, and they've gotten a little better at it now, but it's still that thing of that everything has to be Americanized, otherwise apparently Americans can't relate to it.
I think that at the time that Constantine came out, let me just double check my facts before.
Were we at war with England at that time? Is that why?
Yes. Back in my day.
Is that the war of 1812 and 2005?
No. Okay, that came out in 2005, and Iron Man wouldn't come out until 2007.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to lay this out here. The superhero genre film didn't really catch fire until Iron Man. So they were less apt to take chances. They were more apt to futz with the core material, not thinking that the geek dollar would be as strong as it is.
Maybe, but I mean, this was a year after Hellboy.
As much as I like Hellboy, that was not a raving success in the box office. It did well, but I don't think it's still viewed, I think, as your core characters are covered in makeup. Do you know what I'm saying? And even then they kind of played with some things. But I don't think that they really I don't think that they gave it the latitude that they give it nowadays. I think
not at all.
The fact that Matt Ryan, who is the current English gentleman to portray Constantine, at least in the Constantine series, and he will be appearing in, I think it's episode 4 or 5 of Arrow. And oh god, he was wonderful as Constantine, and for my money, that just his portrayal was about not quite as gritty as it is in the comics, but probably as close as we're going to get in a TV portrayal.
Yeah.
But I think if he was given the latitude, he could do the grit. He could definitely pull it off. He'd do very well at it. I think nowadays, if we were to have Constantine as a film again, he would most certainly be British. And actually, come to think of it, we've got a lot of British stars who are portraying superheroes. We've got Haley Atwell. We've got Andrew Garfield, who has been Spider-Man. We've got Tom Holland, who is the next new Spider-Man. He's British as well. We've had a number of actors who are British who have been hired for superhero films. And granted, they're doing American accents, but drop the accent. I mean, I don't think that the fear is there anymore. I think that they're more apt to be truer to core material than they were back in the day. So, all right, enough rambling about Constantine. I'm going to move to my fifth and final, which is Mystery Men. I love the hell out of that film. Saw it in the theater. I own it, and I've watched it multiple times because it is the quirkiest. Oh, I'm sorry. For Constantine, we didn't really come up with an RPG system.
Oh, that's White Wolf Hunter.
Yeah. Yeah. Hunter, you're right. So we did. Okay. Mystery Men is a Ben Stiller vehicle. Comic book film, again, based on it was a spin-off of Flaming Carrot, actually. And these are heroes that, as I recall, die quite often in the comic. They have kind of a rotating bunch of characters that are a part of the Mystery Men. A very quirky film if you haven't seen it. Gosh, Mystery Men came out, I want to say, in 99. Just want to check my date. Yeah, it came out in 99. And Janine Garofalo, Ben Stiller, William H. Macy, Hank Azaria. Good God, the people, Paul Rubens, they had a wonderful cast. Jeffrey Rush is the bad guy, Greg Kinnear, a great cast, and sadly it did not do well in the box office at all, and that's a tragedy. And again, I think it's a film that came out too soon. That said, I hope they don't ever get a bug up their butts to remake the film, because I think it's good the way it is. This kind of felt to me like, what system are we playing for that? We're playing Champions, and for those of you who are gamers and comic book folk, there is a team called the Great Lakes Avengers. And they are people from the Midwest who have superpowered abilities, but they are not very good superpowered abilities. You have Doorman, who basically, when he can kind of somewhat phase into a wall, and people can pass through him. So he is literally a man who is a door. You have Thumbelina, who is a gorgeous supermodel whose ability is to adjust her mass and become somebody who is probably a good 600 pounds. Is that her name, Thumbelina? I think so. See, that's what happens when you try to do everything from memory.
Wasn't it Big Bertha?
Big Bertha, thank you. Uh,
Dinosaur.
yep, Flatman.
Mr. Immortal.
Yep, Mr. Immortal, whose ability is he dies and he like resurrects in 5 minutes. And
Deadpool slept on their couch for a while.
Yep. Their first appearance was in the comics is 1989. Now, Mystery Men as a comic. Let's see, that's the movie. That's not what I wanted. The internet has failed me. There we go. Okay.
Do you want to go back in the bag? So how we're going to play this?
Okay, the Mystery Men first appeared in 1987. So they sort of predate the Great Lakes Avengers, which makes me kind of wonder. And there's always some back and forth in the world of comics as to where characters and ideas kind of come from. Anyways, back to the Mystery Men. Their first appearance was in Flaming Carrot number 16 from Renegade Press in 1987. And they did grab some characters from the comic book and put them in the movie. Very interesting. But anyways, for the game system that we're playing, which is Great Lakes Avengers meets sort of Mystery Men, although none of us have perished yet, we use Champions, which is basically, I think we're using Hero version 6, the Hero system. And it's a very quirky, interesting sort of setup. The villains are, I think we ran into a villain called the Brown Note. My character is a hero called the Prestidigitator, and he's basically Orpheus from Venture Brothers, done more as a stage magician, who has a magic hat that pulls things out of it. He's sort of like Presto from Dungeons and Dragons meets Orpheus. What is it? We've got a villain called the Killer Mime, I believe is his name. Rob Benton is running, and he was our second guest on the show. Second guest. And that's a game that came from his brain, and very easily something that could have come from one of our sessions that we played, playing the Champions system. So. All right, that's enough rambling about my 5 picks. What are your picks, Glenn?
All right. I'm going to start off with the movie that I think feels like the most quintessential D&D game out there, and that is Hawk the Slayer. Have you seen Hawk the Slayer?
I have never. Jack Palance?
Jack Palance as the villain, overacting his way through every scene. This movie, I mean, it's definitely a thing. It came out in 1980. The soundtrack is like all synthesizers and stuff like that. But I love this film because you have the main character, Hawk, and his basically evil brother, Voltan, played by Jack Palance. They do not see eye to eye. Voltan is a villain who wants to, enslave people and be bad. Hawk's just a good guy loner who has to help rescue this nun that Voltan has taken captive. And he has to recruit a party to do it. He's actually recruited by another guy whose name I cannot remember. but the dude had Ranulph, who actually has like an auto crossbow, fires like these darts super fast. But the crew they get, they recruit Gort, who's a giant. They recruit Crow the elf, and Baldin the dwarf. So you've got this like perfect kind of like D&D group. So Gort's basically like a big barbarian. The dwarf is kind of like the thief. The Crow the elf he's an archer. And it's just Hawk is the all around leader, warrior type guy. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, it's definitely a B movie. I mean, when this was made, 1980, and it's not. There's not like tons of great special effects because it was 1980. They didn't have a huge budget, but it feels so much like a D&D game because it's the fact that it's the gathering the party, and then it's the going on the quest, and it's facing up against different bad guys, and it's just so perfect in those regards. Because he has requests for every one of the companions to get him to come with him, and you should get a little bit of backstory on some of these people, not a lot, but a little bit. And they're actually working on a sequel now, 35 years later. And this movie, it's one of those great movies too, where it made great use of matte paintings.
Oh, nice.
Castle or the stuff in the distance, it was matte paintings.
Sure.
Which was a big thing back then because, if you didn't have the money, you didn't make these huge sets and you couldn't afford to, just fly over to Yugoslavia and film, on location, and over there. So you made do with what you had.
Well, matte paintings were used in, so many films. I mean, the Star Wars series used it. It's what you did.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a movie that's, just been one of my favorites for a long, long time. I revisit it every now and again. I mean, the guy who plays Hawk the Slayer, I mean, he was Christian in Shepard in Lost. If you watched Lost at all, so I mean, he's still doing tons of stuff. He was in 24. He was in Las Vegas series. He's done a lot of TV stuff, a ton of TV stuff. He was on ER for a while. Just, tons and tons and tons of stuff. He's been acting, he hasn't done anything for 2 years. But he was doing stuff up till 2 years ago. And just, you have some people in it who have had careers. So it's not like, these were nobodies. I mean, Jack Palance, who did tons of B movies throughout his career, as well as other stuff. Bernard Bresslaw plays the giant, who also played the Cyclops in Krull. And he's just been he's just a big guy, so he's, anytime there's a big guy role, he was kind of the guy back then. If it was you need a big British guy, he's your man. And Jack Palance just plays a great villain.
Yeah, well, he's such a badass anyway.
Vladimir Palunik, as his birth name is. Or was, because he has passed on. But yeah, Hawk the Slayer, it's such a D&D game brought to life. And really, in the very early days of D&D as well.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
And I'm going to use that to transition into the other fantasy one that I have, which is The Sword and the Sorcerer, which came out 2 years later. Also came out the same year as Conan, released by the same studio as Conan. And this one is, again, it's the hero has to rescue this princess and depose this evil king who is claimed the throne that wasn't his. Actually, all this type of stuff. And the thing about this one is that, well, first of all, the hero is played by Lee Horsley, who was TV's Matt Houston.
He was TV's Matt Houston.
Yes, Matt Houston. But who has recently been in Django Unchained. He's going to be in The Hateful Eight. So he's still doing stuff as well. But, when he made this, Lee Horsley was not a tiny name. He wasn't, huge, but he was a known actor. Not huge, but known. He'd even been on the Love Boat, man. And this movie, what really sold this one is the fact that this movie had anyone who saw it, if they played D&D, wanted the sword he had. Because he had this 3-bladed sword, and the blades shot out of it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture of this sword, and that's...
Oh, it's hugely impractical.
Yeah.
But
and it looks like it's a Frazetta cover on that.
What's that?
Looks like, looking at the movie poster, it looks like it's Frazetta almost.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's the same studio that released Conan in the same year.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I don't know. It did not have the budget that Conan did.
Yeah.
Not that it wasn't well made. I mean, I think for what it was, you've got castles, you've got guys in armor and swords and stuff like that. And I just, it's just a fun little movie where, again, he gets people who he recruits to help him. And it's the fact, it's that whole thing of the, that's one of the things I like in these types of movies is that it's not so much just simply, you've got movies like you'll see like a lot of the Jason Statham things where it's him. He's the hero. Arnold Schwarzenegger is the hero. And there's really no one else. There might be like a guy who goes like, hey, Arnold, here's the keys to your car. And that's the most help he gets. And in these ones, it's like, yeah, the hero he's the big main guy, but he doesn't do it all alone. He needs his support crew. They need their guys who can pick the locks, the people who can get the information, the people who, the other fighters to help him because he can't fight everyone himself. And it's a good thing because they're mercenaries. And that's kind of what adventurers really are in D&D. You're mercenaries. That's what you are.
No, very true.
I mean, there's very, very few games where you're not really a mercenary. I mean, you may not call yourself, well, no, I'm an adventurer. It's like we'll go where people are paying you for the most part. You might have a little bit of morals, when it comes to, okay, I won't take your money to burn down the orphanage. Some players would. But, and I've been just waiting for in the credits, it said, watch for Talon's Adventure, Tales of the Ancient Empire coming soon. And I'm starting to think it's not coming out because it's been 33 years. But I'm still holding out hope that we're going to get Sword and the Sorcerer 2.
Well,
Horsley's a little old, so I might have to have someone else play him. But
I keep waiting for the follow-up to Buckaroo Banzai.
Yes. And you have Richard Mall in this, who plays Zusha, I believe is the name, the kind of demon sorcerer guy. Richard Lynch, who is another just guy who plays a great villain in so many movies. Tons of movies. He plays a villain. That's and just, it's another one of my, it's one of those things from, again, this is the 80s. This is when I was, I was early years of grade school. I was playing D&D. By this point, I was 4 years into playing Dungeons and Dragons, mostly with just my one friend, Pat. But and these are just those movies that it just screamed so much of the games I was playing. These were the movies that were them. As much as I loved Conan Conan didn't feel as much like a D&D campaign to me, because he was still, even though he had the woman and the little Subadar guy, the little Asian dude who was with him, and then the wizard, it didn't quite feel as much of that, because that was still kind of the one man's quest.
Yeah, yep.
And you haven't seen either of those, have you?
No, nope.
Oh, man. Well, we'll go to my next one. Have you seen Blade 2?
It's my least favorite of the three.
It's not one of my favorites either, but I think it gave me fodder for a vampire campaign that we were running, where the players were they were vampire hunters. They worked for the Masquerade, and they hunted down the Sabbat and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I used this as one time where they actually had to team up with some Sabbat vampires, which is pretty much what Blade 2 is. He has to team up with some of the bad guys, the vampires he hates, to go take care of these new vampires that faces split open, and they are all kind of Predator Alien-esque like.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not one of it is my least favorite of the three, but it's the one that feels like a campaign, because again, you've got the party, and this time you have reluctant partnership. And it's got Ron Perlman, so I have to I bump it up a star just for that. And it also has Norman Reedus, from who's Boondock Saints and The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon. So
it does. What character did he play?
Scud.
Oh man. See, now I have to suck it up and watch it again.
You do. You really do. And yeah, it's one of those ones that I like it because of the fact that it's the unlikely allies, which is a trope I have used numerous times over the years of running games, where there are the alliances you make that are with people you don't trust, but you know that you need them to accomplish your goal because you can't do it on your own. And that's what this whole movie is. It's that you can't do it on your own, and the fact that he's right to not trust them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's the thing is, it's obvious they're bad. As soon as your usefulness is done, they will try to kill you. And in that movie, I mean, the people he teams up with was a team of people who were trained to kill him.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it worked well as fodder for that type of campaign. And again, I just said, I like the whole unlikely allies thing. Or not even unlikely, just the completely no. I won't. They're the bad guys.
Yeah, the people that.
But there's a worse guy out there now. It's like it's like we teamed up with Stalin in World War II to take out Hitler.
Yeah.
And if Patton had his way, we would have all right, now let's rearm the Germans and take out Stalin because he's a nut job.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's why I feel that this one fits well within that genre.
Nice.
Moving on.
Yeah.
To a movie that I actually loved, and a lot of people panned it, and I think a lot of people panned it. I think a lot of them, first of all, didn't watch it. They panned it because they saw the poster or the trailer, and they dismissed it as a misogynistic jerk-off fest.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other ones who didn't like it didn't understand it. They looked at simply the surface and looked at nothing else going on and just took it as what it was on the surface, which was just a bunch of pretty pictures. But there's a deeper story in it, and I'm talking about Sucker Punch. You've seen Sucker Punch? I
have, and okay. To me, one other movie I'm gonna lay this out here, and Jennifer's Body, I think, is an incredible horror film, and I'm taking this somewhere. Trust me. To me, Jennifer's Body, if you weren't paying attention to the whole film and all the little clues that were dropped throughout, you didn't realize that it was never about Jennifer. None of it.
No, it's all about...
It's all about Needy.
Yeah.
It was all about corrupting Needy. And to me, Sucker Punch is the same way, because spoiler, we were following one person, and at the end of the film, it turns out that wasn't the whole purpose of the thing. We move on to somebody else, and it was pretty much to save this other person. And it was a very, very interesting film. It was a very interesting look at ways people mentally try to protect themselves when they're put in really horrible situations,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of creating fantasy because it's far better than what reality actually is. And yeah, it's really more of a psychological. Boy, help me out here. It's more of a tale of the person's mind's defenses, I think, and
Yeah,
trying to deal with reality when everything is not right with the world at all.
absolutely. And plus now this game, if I were to run this type of thing in a game, this would be like Rifts
Yeah, yeah.
because you're all over the place. I mean, you've got like World War One era like Germans with a giant freaking mech robot. You've got like a B-17 bomber attacking orcs in a castle.
And dragons.
Yeah, and dragons. It's all over the place, which is one of the things I love. It's that it's this entire escapist fantasy of baby doll, and then that's the big thing is this this is in the imagination. I mean anything is possible. So you can have orcs and machine guns, and you can have that that mix of stuff. And it's just I think it's a highly underrated movie. And I mean part of it is Zack Snyder makes things that are very, very slick and very pretty to look at.
Yeah.
As far as the cinematography, as far as the images he uses, and I mean, there's not a deep story behind 300,
No.
and a lot of his other films. And this one, I think people weren't looking for any story because they're like, it's Zack Snyder. I saw a trailer that had orcs and machine guns and a girl in an Asian schoolgirl with a sword. That's what I'm going to see. And they didn't realize that there was this story going on with it. And just to say simply that this would be Rifts, it's only because I can't think of, there aren't that many genre games that span all these different things all at the same time.
Yeah.
I think they've tried to do it, but it's a hard thing to mix because how does a dragon fare against a heavy machine gun?
Yeah, you would really need a rules system that could have everything be somewhat balanced.
Yes.
And yeah, no, I would agree with that. Absolutely.
But I also just love the whole, it's a mind bender. And it's a mind bender that does not now like Inception. I liked Inception. But Inception spoon-fed the audience throughout almost the entire film. You always knew what was a dream and what wasn't because they were kind of saying, okay, we're in this guy's dream now. We have to do this one thing, and then we can leave this guy's dream. The only time it got murky was right at the very end. Otherwise, everything leading up there was very spoon-fed as far as, you knew where you were the whole time. At least I felt that way. In this one, it's hard at times knowing exactly what she is fantasizing and what it blurs the lines between reality and fantasy. On top of the fact that if you go back and rewatch it, you pick up things you missed the first time through. It's actually made really clear once you know what the story is. In the beginning, it's made very clear that this story is not Baby Doll's story.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, she starts in the lobotomy room.
Yeah, yes.
But then she's on a stage, and when she stands up, it's not her, it's Sweet Pea. Which immediately then, knowing what you know, having watched before, you now know, yeah, this is Sweet Pea's story. This is Sweet Pea's escape, is what this actually is all about.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's just one where I walked out of there going, I want to play games in that world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is Sucker Punch. And I mean, again, I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't like the pretty girls.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know some people who they were instantly turned off by that, and I can see that to a point. But I think to not even give the movie a chance, I think was a mistake some people made. And there was actually one person who did a great review on it. Kat Hill, who is known as the Action Chick Girl, if I remember. I'm hoping I'm screwing that up. She wrote a great article on it where she understood what was going on, that it was not just simply a cheesecake film.
Yeah, it wasn't about TNA. It was
No.
It was escapism and yeah.
Yep. And then, because you mentioned film noir, I had to throw something in there. So, Maltese Falcon. It is one of my all-time favorite film noir films. I mean, I like a lot of film noir. I mean, The Big Sleep, just Double Indemnity, Casablanca, kind of. I don't really consider that one so much film noir. It's just kind of, it has Humphrey Bogart, so people call it film noir. But this one is just, it's that quintessential private eye, Sam Spade. It's, Philip Marlowe type stuff. That is, Philip Marlowe's Sam Spade, those are like the names of like the big detectives. And this one is just, it's so much a product of its time. I love the dialogue. I love the interaction of the characters. It is a great movie, and it shows that kind of, that feel of the world back then, as well as this whole, how everyone interacted. You've got the private eye, you've got the tough guys, you've got the detective, the cops and all that stuff. And I just love the interaction between everyone. And it's got one of my favorite moments is when Humphrey Bogart goes to slap the one guy, and the guy pulls away, and he's like, "Hey, when I hit you, you're going to stand there, you're going to take it." It's just, it's that, it's the quintessential, tough guy, private eye. And I love it. And I actually based, when I ran Top Secret all the way through college, actually, or actually up through my sophomore year of college. I ran Top Secret games. And I took a lot of inspiration from film noir stuff. I almost every game, I had people who were very reminiscent of Peter Lorre, as well as Sidney Greenstreet.
Okay.
My good man, Rick. That.
Yeah.
The one who hires you for the job, and you can't trust him because he's as crooked as they come. And the Weasley guy that Peter Lorre always played, I just love those characters, and I use those in games so many times over the years, and it makes me actually, talking about it now, I'm jonesing to go back and do some of my old Top Secret stuff that I ran using source books from actually Call of Cthulhu and other games like that, because I ran it in the 1940s. And I use obviously Cthulhu was 1920s, but it was close enough for a lot, like the advertisement, the clothing styles and stuff like that, when they had for picking equipment and all that stuff. And I loved running those games. And most of my players enjoyed it. There was one guy who didn't, because he was simply a, can I hit it with a sword type of guy.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's what some people like, but I loved running these games. And this one was just, it's one of those movies that I adore this movie. And I love the book too, by Dashiell Hammett. Even though there's differences and whatever, blah, I don't care. I'm a hypocrite when it comes to things that don't follow exactly the book. If they do a good job of it, they make a good film, I can forgive the fact that it's not exactly like the book. And this, I think, is one of the best film noir films that ever existed. And I know some people think it's overrated just because it's Bogart, and blah blah blah. Whatever. Shut up, you.
You know what?
What?
I found the rules on Scribd.com.
Ooh.
And I sent you a link. And I'm going to include it in the show notes, by God.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't know where you sent me a link, but okay.
I put it in the document and then
Oh yeah,
also
there it
in
is.
the in the comments. Yeah, there you
Bam.
go. So I am actually I do have a Scribed account, and I will be downloading it now.
Excellent. I should get a Scribed account.
You can create an account with your Facebook.
Wonderful.
Yep.
And you know,
Go ahead.
we went through our 10 movies, and I would be remiss if I left one out, because I remember walking out of the theater, and when I did my review for it on the B Movie Bunker, even though it's not a B movie, the words I used is, as I said, I want to play this as a tabletop game right now, and that was the new Mad Max.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't so much just RPG; it was Car Wars.
Oh, sure. Yep.
And when we played Car Wars, we played it as an RPG. I mean, we did the Car Wars stuff where we drove around and we, drove our cars and we had big car wars, I guess, as it were. But then we had characters that we did stuff outside of our cars, and it was very much taken from the original Road Warrior film that my DM had based, or Game Master, I suppose, would be the proper term, because it's not Dungeons and Dragons. If we're going to be technical, well, actually, it would be Game Master. And I remember walking out of the theater going, I want to play that game right now. And it's not often I walk out of a movie and that's the first thought to my mind is, I want to play that as a game, and not a video game. I want to play in this as a world type of thing.
Sure.
And there's just so many movies out there that over the years I have mined so much off of movies and TV shows. I mean, and you have your classics, obviously Star Trek, and it has a wealth of just stories you can pull from, and Doctor Who, and
Sure.
Babylon 5.
Oh.
I mean, sci-fi is rife with stories that you can take, and it doesn't take that much to tweak just a little bit, where you can fool players who have even watched the stuff with you.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff I ran off of Film Noir that I ran for the Top Secret, one of the people who played the campaign introduced me to half the movies that I used. He's the one who had them on VHS
Sure.
that I borrowed them from. So,
I guess that's the thing that, and the true purpose of this particular episode, now that we've gone through everything, is that there are ideas to be found everywhere, and they don't necessarily have to just, you don't need to create it in a void that's just your head. Even the best writers use other source material to create ideas and maybe find a new twist on a theme that has come up before. Don't try to create in a vacuum. There's a lot of material out there which you can borrow either the theme or some of the structure, and you're not stealing. You are taking an idea and you are making it your own. And in so doing, you have the ability to perhaps introduce your players to something entirely new, maybe something they hadn't thought of, seen before. By the time you get done with that particular session, you could say, okay, well, this is based on this. And if you want to know more about this, if you had a good time, check out The Maltese Falcon, check out Mystery Men, check out, Lady Hawk, check out Sucker Punch, whatever. It's a good way to open doors to show people other things that, if you enjoyed this, hey, check out this. I mean, Amazon does it all the time. You buy something and it goes, hey, people that bought this also were interested in looking at this. So it's just accomplishing the same thing. There's nothing wrong with exposing people to new things and new ideas and new materials, new books, new comics that they probably haven't checked out, and maybe they should. So by all means, borrow away.
Yes.
All right. We're going to wrap things up here. We're going to jump into Hello, My Name Is. It's your opportunity to tell us about your favorite character that you have or are currently playing. I keep thinking about last meeting's Papadopoulos Buttdicks, who did receive the certificate that we send out to those who play along with us and submit their character to us. You go to galacticnetcasts.com and you go to the podcasts section of Adventure Party, and we have a link that takes you directly to Hello, My Name Is. You fill out a short form. Yes, I do ask for your email address. No, I despise spamming in all its fashions. The only reason why I ask for the email address is if we use your character for the Hello, My Name Is section on here, is to send you a certificate suitable for framing that we create for each person who we choose for this, and just as a way to say thank you for taking the time to join us and to share a little bit about a character that they loved, a little bit about a system that they enjoy playing, and why that character that you played was so cool. So it's just a way to celebrate you and your character, and expose people to another game system that maybe they haven't tried before, and we talk a little bit about the game system as well. And we did get some feedback, Glenn. Back in meeting number 11, we talked about an RPG adaptation of Myst and Riven that was called Unwritten.
Yes.
And so it's the Cyan classic game system from the early 2000s, which was mind-bending and original, and was bought by a lot of people, and a game that I think opened up a whole genre of games where you solved the puzzle and you saw kind of a video of some interactivity of your choice, and how it impacts the world or impacts the the quest that you're taking, and it was a very, very fun and interesting game. And it looks like the people at Unwritten actually noticed that we talked about them, and here's the note that we got for them. Thanks to at Galactic Netcast and at B. Ludwig for the Unwritten mention in Adventure Party number 11. So, actually, I'm looking to talk to the folks at Unwritten and get them on the show here. So, I look forward to that happening and sharing that conversation with everyone here, hopefully fairly soon. So, thanks to them for taking the time, and actually our SEO must be fairly decent because they did find that mention of Unwritten. So yeah, looking forward to talking to the Unwritten folks. You can find Adventure Party by going to galacticnetcasts.com, and there you can find all of our social media outlets for our YouTube channel, where you can see the video version of the Adventure Party. And always, as we talk about, especially Glenn's review of a game, I always try to share the screen, and this was based on some user feedback, some listener feedback that we got. That we, if you're going to do a YouTube version, by God, you should show us a little bit of what you're talking about, and point well taken, and we strive to do that as best we can so that you can see the games that we're talking about and stuff that you visually need to see, and we want to share with you. So please do. If you just listen to the audio version of this, check out our YouTube channel, which is Galactic Netcasts. You can find us there on YouTube. If you're using iTunes or Stitcher, they do have a way for you to give a review and comment on a show or individual episodes. I think on Stitcher you give a thumbs up or thumbs down. And iTunes, there is a star rating. I'm not going to ask you for a 5-star review necessarily, but feedback about the show would be appreciated. Any feedback that we get from folks can help us make a better show, and help us shape the show into something that really suits the needs of the folks that we're trying to reach with it. So please take a moment to do that. You can also leave us feedback by emailing galacticnetcasts@gmail.com, or you can call or text the number 805-328-3966. Again, 805-328-3966. And you can leave us a voice or text message. You can also go to the website, and there is a link, and it moves. It moves. We're trying to keep you on your toes. It should be on the left-hand side of the screen that says leave us a message. If you click that link and you have a microphone attached to your computer, you can leave us a message directly from your computer, and it creates an MP3 file and shoots us an email letting us know what you have to say. So there are multiple ways to get a hold of us and let us know what you're thinking. So I want to thank Glenn for joining us once again on this bold quest for movies that could be RPG campaigns, or could have stemmed from an RPG campaign, or could be turned into an RPG campaign. Where can people find out more about what you do on YouTube and the game Mistrunner?
On YouTube at Naked Hope Productions and the B Movie Bunker. Also on Facebook at both of those as well, Naked Hope Productions and the B Movie Bunker, as well as the Mistrunner RPG. Or just follow me on Twitter at Naked Hobo.
Yes, Naked Hobo Productions. It's a name you should never forget, and you'll probably never be able to scrub that image out of your head. All right. Thank you so much for joining the Adventure Party. May your characters never die and your adventures always be epic. Thank you, and good night.